If you asked me 6 months ago how I thought my sister's graduation party would go, I probably would have said something polite like, "Oh, I'm sure it'll be nice." That's just who I used to be. Always the polite one, the easygoing one, the one who let things slide and tried not to take things personally. But that night peeled the last layer of me off like old wallpaper. And once I saw what was underneath, I realized I had been quietly swallowing my pride for years, mistaking it for maturity. My name's Caleb. I'm 24. And I think the moment I stood in our driveway, watching my parents hand my younger sister the keys to a brand new car while I still made monthly payments on a used hatchback from 2008, that's when something cracked inside me. It's not even about the car. I swear it's not. It's about everything that led up to that moment, the thousand small cuts before the final wound. But I guess if I want this to make sense, I have to start from the beginning. Or at least from a point where the patterns started to become too loud to ignore. I'm the oldest of two kids. My sister, Sabrina, just turned 18 a few months ago. She's the golden child. You know the type, captain of the dance team, on a roll, that bright laugh that lights up a room. People gravitate toward her. Teachers loved her. Neighbors adored her. And my parents? They worshipped her. I used to joke about it, especially when we were younger. Let me guess, Sabrina gets a pony next? I'd say with a laugh when she got her third American Girl doll, and I got a pack of socks for Christmas. But back then, I thought it was just the way parents were with the baby of the family. I didn't mind being more low-key. I wasn't a troublemaker or anything. I did all right in school, not a genius, but solid. I worked part-time through college, graduated with a degree in computer science, and landed a decent IT job after school. Moved back in for a bit to save money. I even helped pay a few bills when things were tight. Didn't complain. Just figured that's what a responsible son does, right? But slowly, the scales tipped. I started to notice how my achievements were always met with a polite nod, while Sabrina's smallest wins got balloons and social media posts. When I landed my first full-time job, "That's nice, Caleb," my mom said, not even looking up from her phone. When Sabrina got accepted to a college that wasn't even her top choice, they took her out for steak and made a big announcement on Facebook with the caption, "So proud of our brilliant girl." I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't need applause. But, man, it starts to wear on you. You start to feel invisible. Like no matter how hard you work, how good you try to be, you'll never shine quite the same. Things started ramping up once Sabrina's senior year rolled around. Suddenly, every weekend was about college tours, dress fittings for dances, scholarship essays, and catered brunches with her friends. I kept my head down, spent most of my free time fixing up my old car, saving for my own place. Every now and then, I'd offer to help around the house, cleaning the garage, cooking dinner when mom worked late. But more often than not, my efforts were met with offhand comments. "Why don't you go out more?" my dad would say. "You're always just here." Once, I heard my mom on the phone with Aunt Valerie, saying, "Caleb's doing okay. Just kind of floating through life, you know? Not like Sabrina. She's really going places." That one stung. Floating? I was working 40 hours a week and freelancing on the side. I had just hit 10K in savings. I was putting in the work, but because it didn't come with photo ops or glitter, it didn't count. Still, I stayed. I stayed because it was convenient, and I thought maybe it was just a phase. Sabrina would go off to college, and maybe things would balance out again. Maybe without her soaking up all the spotlight, I'd have space to breathe. Then came the graduation party. My mom had been planning it for months. It started as a backyard thing, some decorations, a few friends, nothing major. But somewhere along the line, it turned into a full-blown production. Tent rentals, a live band, a catered buffet, even a custom cake shaped like the logo of Sabrina's future university. I didn't say anything. I just kept moving boxes and helping my dad set up the yard. I even installed string lights the night before because, "Caleb, you're good with your hands, right?" I was sweating in the June heat while Sabrina got her nails done. The day of the party, the house was buzzing with activity. Relatives I hadn't seen in years were there, all fawning over Sabrina like she just won a Nobel Prize. My dad wore a polo shirt with her college's logo on it. My mom was glowing like she was the one graduating. I kept myself busy, manning the grill and making sure the drinks were stocked. No one told me to. I just figured someone had to do it. Around sunset, after the food and the photos, my dad clinked a glass and got everyone's attention for a toast. I stepped away from the grill, wiping my hands on a towel. I figured it'd be your standard proud parent speech. Something about how fast time flies, how proud they were. And it was. At first, he started with, "We've watched Sabrina grow into such a bright, talented, driven young woman." And everyone smiled and nodded. He went on about her GPA, her dance competitions, her leadership skills. I was waiting for the part where he'd maybe throw in a word for me, just a both our kids kind of thing. But that part never came. Instead, he finished with, "We can't wait to see what she does next. We know her future's going to be nothing short of extraordinary." My mom raised her glass and added, "To our shining star." They all cheered. Sabrina beamed. Then came the surprise. My dad stepped aside and gestured toward the driveway. "And to send you off in style." The garage door opened. Parked in the driveway was a silver Honda Civic. Brand new, with a red bow on the hood. The crowd gasped, clapped. Sabrina covered her mouth and screamed. "No freaking way." She ran up and hugged them both. My mom teared up. My dad handed her the keys. And then, in the middle of all the cheers, my mom turned to me, handed me a plastic dustpan, and said, loud enough for half the yard to hear, "Think you can sweep up before people start tracking dirt inside? That's more your level." I froze, dustpan in hand. Everyone else kept clapping. My sister laughed so hard she actually snorted. That was it. That was the moment. Not the car. Not the speech. The dustpan. The dismissal. The public reminder that, in their eyes, I wasn't worth celebrating. I was just the help. I didn't say a word. I didn't make a scene. I just walked into the house, up to my room, and started packing. No one even noticed I was gone until the next morning. 2 days later, the messages started rolling in. "Where did you go? Are you okay? We didn't mean it like that. Come home." But by then, I was long gone. And I had a plan forming. A quiet one. The kind that starts small but grows teeth. Because I wasn't just leaving, I was done being invisible. And maybe, just maybe, it was time they finally saw me. I didn't answer any of their messages. Not the first wave, not the second, not even when they started calling me by name. I read them, sure. I read every single one. I watched the tone shift from confusion to guilt to irritation, and then, finally, silence. That silence. It was louder than any of their words. I'd packed 2 duffel bags and loaded up my old Civic the night of the party. I didn't even know where I was going at first. I just drove. Out of town, past the lights, past the gas stations and sleepy diners that had once made up the edges of my world. I ended up crashing on my friend Jonah's couch for a while. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a blanket and said, "Stay as long as you need, man." Funny how people who aren't blood can feel more like family in the moments that matter. I spent the next few days bouncing between Jonah's apartment, the coffee shop down the street, and the parking lot behind the old rec center that still had decent Wi-Fi. I kept my freelance gigs going, and my regular job allowed remote work, so I wasn't totally off-grid. But emotionally, I was gone, disconnected, still reeling. It wasn't just the dustpan. It wasn't just the party. It was every single time I was made to feel like a burden in my own home. The time they forgot my birthday because Sabrina had a dance recital. The time I bought groceries for the whole house and my mom told me not to show off. The time I got promoted and my dad said, "That's nice," before asking if I could help clean out the gutters. Sabrina, meanwhile, floated through life on a cloud of praise and rewards. And she didn't even seem to notice. Or maybe she did. Maybe she liked it that way. Either way, I needed distance. And for a few weeks, I got it. But then July rolled around. 4th of July had always been a big deal in our neighborhood. Block party, fireworks, burgers on the grill, one of the few times the whole cul-de-sac came alive. When I was younger, I used to love it. But this year, I figured I'd let it pass. Jonah was heading out of town with his girlfriend, and I had no real plans. I was fine with that. Quiet felt better than fake smiles and forced conversation. Then, on the morning of the 3rd, I got a text from my mom. "We're doing a small family thing for the 4th. Just us. No pressure, but we'd love for you to stop by. Sabrina asked if you'd be there." That last sentence struck me as odd. Sabrina asked? Really? Against my better judgment, I thought, maybe things had cooled off. Maybe they actually wanted to talk. Maybe this was a peace offering. I showed up around 6 p.m., a 6-pack of root beer in hand. My mom opened the door and blinked like she wasn't expecting me. "Oh, you came." "Yeah, you invited me," I said. She stepped aside. "Right. Of course." The house looked the same. Smelled like charcoal and coleslaw. My dad was out back by the grill, flipping burgers. Sabrina was sitting at the patio table, wearing sunglasses and scrolling through her phone. No one looked especially thrilled to see me. "Hey," I said, walking outside. My dad gave me a quick nod. "Look who decided to show up." Sabrina barely looked up. Wow, a miracle. I ignored the tone. I told myself I wasn't here to argue. I was here to talk. We ate. The conversation was surface level: weather, gas prices, Sabrina's dorm assignment. No one asked me how I'd been or where I was staying. No one even mentioned the graduation party. Finally, I broke the silence. "Look, I just want to say something. I'm not here to fight, but that night, what happened at the party? That really messed me up." My mom set down her fork. "Caleb, it was a joke." "A joke?" I repeated. "You handed me a dustpan in front of 30 people and said it was more my level." My dad scoffed. "You're being sensitive." "No," I said. "I'm being honest. And it's not just that. It's been like this for years. Sabrina gets celebrated for breathing, and I get treated like an afterthought." Sabrina laughed. "Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. You're just mad because you didn't get a car." I turned to her. "It's not about the car." "Then what is it?" she said, folding her arms. "You want a gold star for being mediocre?" That hit me harder than I expected. I stared at her, stunned. "You think I'm mediocre?" "I think you're jealous," she said. "You've always been bitter. You hide it under that quiet act, but everyone sees it." I looked at my parents. Neither of them said a word. My dad was chewing. My mom just looked away. That was the second crack. I stood up. "You know what? Thanks for the meal." My mom called after me, but I didn't stop. I walked straight to my car, slammed the door, and didn't look back. A week passed. Then two. No one reached out. I figured that was the end of it. And maybe that would have been fine. I could have stayed gone. But then came the betrayal that changed everything. It started with a call from my bank. "Hi, Mr. Taylor," the rep said. "We're just calling to confirm a few recent charges on your account." I frowned. "Okay." She listed off a few places I didn't recognize. A boutique clothing store, a new age spa, a high-end sushi place downtown, totaling over $1,100. My stomach dropped. "I didn't authorize those." "We thought that might be the case," she said. "They were charged using your old joint account." My heart skipped. Old joint account. Then I remembered. Back in college, I'd opened a joint account with my mom so she could deposit money while I was away. Tuition, groceries, emergency stuff. We never officially closed it. I hadn't touched it in over 2 years. Totally forgot it existed. Apparently, she hadn't. "I'll need to file a fraud claim," I told the rep. "No problem. We'll lock the account for now and send over the forms." After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, just breathing. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Maybe she thought it was still hers. Maybe it was a one-time thing. But the next day, I checked the activity. There were weeks of charges. Dinners, clothing, gift shops, even a booking for a weekend cabin. It wasn't just my mom's name attached. One of the purchases included a gift receipt with a note. "Congrats on your scholarship, Sabs. Love you. Sabs." Sabrina. They were using my money. Without asking. Without telling me. Like it was owed. That was the third crack. That was when the last bit of doubt I had evaporated. I didn't confront them right away. I didn't text, didn't call. I just printed everything. Every receipt, every transaction, every note with her name on it, and put it all in a folder. And then, out of sheer spite, I started digging into everything. I pulled up old emails, cross-checked names, ran searches on public records. What I found made my stomach twist. Remember when they said they were tight on money and asked me to chip in on utilities? That same month, they booked a resort getaway in Cancun. Remember when I offered to help fix the leaky sink and they said they couldn't afford the part? Turns out, they spent nearly $400 on a private dance coach for Sabrina. Remember when I loaned them $800 to cover Sabrina's urgent school fees? That money went toward her spring break trip. There were photos, bikini-clad, drinks in hand, sun-kissed smiles. All while I was eating dollar ramen and working weekends. I thought I was helping my family. Turns out, I was just their safety net. No, their backup wallet. That was the breaking point. The quiet part of me. The one that made excuses, that swallowed pain, that hoped things would get better, finally died. They didn't just forget me. They used me. And suddenly, I didn't just want distance. I wanted justice. But the best revenge? It isn't loud. It's quiet. It's careful. And it's coming. Rock bottom didn't arrive all at once. It wasn't some dramatic movie scene where I collapsed on the floor, crying in the rain, or threw my phone across the room in a moment of rage. No, it crept in like a slow leak under a floorboard, quiet, unnoticed, until one day you step down and feel it rot beneath your feet. After I discovered my mom and Sabrina had been draining that old joint account, I froze. Not literally, but emotionally. I'd always been the type to internalize everything. Think first, react later. But even with all the receipts, all the evidence, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to blow up and give them the satisfaction of calling me too emotional again. I didn't want to show my hand until I had a full deck. So I did nothing. For a while at least. And doing nothing? It ate at me. I stopped sleeping. Or rather, I slept in short, fractured bursts, never more than 3 or 4 hours a night. My thoughts spun in circles, looping over every past slight I'd convinced myself was no big deal. The birthday they skipped. The time they used my car without asking and returned it with an empty tank. The Christmas where Sabrina got concert tickets and a MacBook and I got a flannel shirt 2 sizes too small. Each memory hit differently now. Sharper. Like realizing a bruise you thought had healed was still tender when pressed. Jonah noticed, of course. He started making small comments. "You good, man?" Or, "You barely touched your food." I kept brushing him off. Told him I was just tired. Work stress. The heat. He didn't push, but I knew he knew. One night, after another failed attempt at sleep, I sat outside on the apartment balcony, staring at the empty street below. That's when I admitted it to myself. I wasn't just angry. I was ashamed. Ashamed that I let them use me. That I kept hoping they'd change. That even now, a tiny part of me still wanted their approval. It broke me. Quietly. Slowly. I started turning down freelance gigs. Let emails pile up. I told my manager I needed some mental health days. But even when I had time off, I didn't know what to do with it. I'd open my laptop to work on my resume or start apartment hunting, and I'd just sit there, staring at the screen. For the first time in my adult life, I felt directionless. Drifting. Then one afternoon, Jonah knocked on my door with 2 coffees and said, "We're going for a walk." "I've got work," I lied. "No, you don't," he said. "Put on shoes." I followed him to the park down the block. We didn't talk much at first, just walked in silence, letting the trees and summer air do the heavy lifting. Then he sat down on a bench and handed me one of the coffees. "You're not okay," he said simply. "I will be," I said. When I didn't answer, he leaned back and looked up at the sky. "You know what I think? I think you spent so long trying to earn your family's love that you forgot how to give it to yourself." That one landed like a gut punch. Because deep down, I knew he was right. I sighed. I thought being the good son would count for something. Jonah shrugged. Being good doesn't always mean being seen. Sometimes it just means being used. That night, I started writing a list. Not a revenge list. Not yet. Just a simple Google Doc titled, "Things I Want." It was embarrassingly short at first. My own apartment. A better car. Sleep that doesn't feel like drowning. Friends who know the whole story. But the more I added, the more something shifted in me. A flicker of momentum. Of purpose. Over the next few days, I started making changes. Small ones. I opened a new bank account. Solo, locked down, no joint access. I froze the old one and filed the fraud claims. The bank sided with me, by the way. Full refund. I cleaned up my portfolio and refreshed my resume. Sent out a few applications, not because I hated my job, but because I wanted options. I went for long walks in the evenings. Started reading again, nonfiction stuff about boundaries, self-respect, toxic families. One of them said something that stuck with me. If someone only loves the version of you they can control, that's not love. That's convenience. I read that line 3 times. Then I highlighted it, printed it, and taped it above my laptop screen. About 2 weeks into this quiet rebuild, I got a text from Sabrina. "Hey, heard you froze the account. Mom's freaking out." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just irritation. I stared at it for a long time before replying. "It wasn't yours to use." She responded instantly. "It was Mom's idea. I didn't even know it was your money. Relax." I didn't reply. 2 hours later, another message. "You're really making a big deal out of nothing. I just thought we were family." That word, family, made me laugh out loud. I didn't delete the messages. I saved them. Every one of them. I had a folder on my desktop now labeled receipts. At some point, I realized I wasn't just rebuilding. I was preparing. A month passed. I found a one-bedroom apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, but clean, quiet, and all mine. Signed the lease and moved in the same week. Jonah helped me haul boxes up 3 flights of stairs. He even brought me a housewarming gift, a cheap doormat that said, "Not welcome." I laughed harder than I had in weeks. I bought a real bed, a real desk, used part of the refunded money to replace my laptop and invest in better gear for my freelance work. Clients noticed. Work picked up. I raised my rates. Every day, I woke up a little earlier, ate a little better, stretched, made my bed. I kept the receipts folder on my desktop, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder. I'm not crazy. It happened, and I survived. I didn't block my family. I wanted them to see me rebuild. Wanted them to know I was doing better without them. Eventually, the messages resumed. Saw your new place. Looks nice. You didn't invite us to your housewarming? We're still your family, Caleb. Sabrina's leaving for college soon. It would mean a lot if you stopped by before she goes. I didn't reply. 2 days later, my mom called. I let it ring. She called again. And again. Finally, I picked up. Her voice was clipped. I just want to understand why you're being so cold. I blinked. You used my money without asking. That account was joint, Caleb, which you knew I forgot about. You used that to your advantage. A pause. Then, you're twisting things. I have the receipts. You're being petty. No, I said, calm and clear. I'm being done. Silence. Then, in a lower voice, your sister's leaving soon. You really want to ruin things over a few $100s. That's when I laughed. A bitter, tired laugh. It wasn't just the money. It's never been just the money. Then what? She snapped. You want us to grovel? Is that it? I want you to understand, I said. But I know you never will. I hung up. That night, I opened a new document. This one wasn't a list. It was a plan. Because rebuilding wasn't enough anymore. I wanted to reveal. Not scream. Not confront. But show. I wanted them to feel what it was like to be ignored. To be left out. To realize, too late, that I wasn't theirs to mistreat anymore. That I was never coming back. And when the opportunity came, I would take it. Quietly. Perfectly. They say revenge is best served cold, but honestly, I wasn't interested in revenge. Not in the traditional sense. I wasn't looking to shout, to throw furniture, to corner my mom, or scream at Sabrina until they cried. No, I didn't want chaos. I wanted clarity. Exposure. A clean, surgical strike that would make them sit in the mess they made, and finally realize that I'd left their orbit entirely. The truth is, when I started planning, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like closure. A chance to write the ending they never gave me. It started with Sabrina's college send-off. August rolled in thick with humidity, and social media buzzed with back-to-school photos. Sabrina, of course, was front and center. My mom updated her Facebook like she was running a fan page. Can't believe our little girl is college-bound. So proud, with 100 emojis and a collage of photos. Sabrina in her new dorm hoodie, Sabrina next to her car, Sabrina holding her dorm checklist like it was a Grammy. I didn't say anything, but I watched. She was going to a private college just 2 hours away. Not cheap. The kind of place where dorm rooms look like hotel suites and the meal plans include vegan sushi. I did a little digging. Tuition, room, board, it added up. Fast. That's when the seed planted itself. Because suddenly, I remembered something from a year back. A dinner conversation, back when I still lived at home. My dad had said, "We'll never qualify for enough financial aid for Sabrina unless we show a lower income. Gotta be smart about what we report." At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. Just more of my dad's usual winking attitude toward rules. But now it made me curious. I logged into my own FAFSA profile, just to see. Back when I'd applied for aid during college, my parents had insisted on handling it. I'd been too naive to question anything. Now that I knew how it worked, it made me wonder, what had they claimed? What had they hidden? Out of curiosity, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request to get a copy of my aid summary from my final year of college. A week later, I had it. And there it was. My FAFSA listed my parents' income as significantly lower than what I knew they were making at the time. I remembered because that same year, they bought a new living room set and took Sabrina to New York for a week-long dance intensive. I cross-checked the tax returns they'd given me with what I found online in property records, employer salary averages, and a few other breadcrumbs. The math didn't lie. And if they did it for me, they probably did it for Sabrina, too. So I kept digging. Her college's website listed a number of grants and aid packages available, but all required income verification. The more I researched, the clearer it became. If my parents had underreported income on her forms like they had on mine, and if the school ever got wind of it, it could trigger a full audit. Not to mention potential disqualification of aid. Retroactively. Again, I wasn't looking to ruin her life. But I was tired of carrying the weight of a family that acted like their lies were justified because they wore nice clothes and smiled for pictures. I needed someone to talk to. So I called Zoe. Zoe was a friend from college, sharp, blunt, and currently finishing her law degree with a focus on education and finance. We hadn't talked in months, but when I explained what I'd found, her response was immediate. They defrauded the system, Caleb. If that school runs a financial aid audit and finds discrepancies, it's a big deal. It could affect her current funding and trigger repayment of aid already used. I exhaled. I'm not trying to destroy her. I know, she said. But if you're thinking of using this, you don't have to do anything illegal. You just need to be smart. Let the truth do the heavy lifting. She offered to help me draft an anonymous tip. One that didn't mention my name, but included enough verifiable facts that the school's financial aid office would have no choice but to look into it. That was the first domino. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Because while that was a long-term consequence, I wanted something sooner. Something smaller. Symbolic. Something that would remind them I wasn't the kid holding the dustpan anymore. That's when fate handed me a gift. A wedding. My cousin Danielle was getting married in late September. Big event. Garden venue. Open bar. The whole family was invited. And despite everything, I still got an invitation. Part of me was shocked. The other part suspected my mom insisted they include me so she wouldn't have to explain my absence to relatives. She hated how silence reflected on her. The invite didn't mention plus ones, but I RSVP'd yes anyway. Not out of spite, just practicality. And as it happened, I had someone in mind. Her name was Camille. We'd matched on a dating app in July, gone on a few casual dates, and discovered we both liked board games, dry humor, and old horror movies. But beyond all that, Camille was a social chameleon. Smart. Observant. The kind of woman who could read a room in 2 seconds flat and turn any conversation around with a polite, cutting smile. When I told her about my family and the wedding, she raised an eyebrow. You want me to be your decoy? I want you to be the calm before the storm, I said. I want them to realize they don't know who I am anymore. She smirked. I can do that. We planned everything. I told her the backstory, filtered, but honest. She understood. She didn't pity me. She just nodded and said, all right, let's make you look untouchable. I bought a tailored suit for the wedding. Got a fresh haircut. Polished my shoes until they gleamed. Not for them, for me. For the first time in years, I wanted to feel like I walked in on my terms. The day of the wedding, I pulled up in a rental, sleek, black, and completely out of character from the car they remembered. I stepped out with Camille on my arm, both of us dressed like we'd stepped out of a magazine ad for a young power couple mid-ascent. I saw my mom's jaw tighten as we approached. Caleb, she said, clearly surprised. You made it. I said I would. I replied coolly. This is Camille. Camille smiled. It's lovely to meet you. Caleb's told me so much about his past. The pause was intentional. Sabrina was standing a few feet away, surrounded by her usual entourage of admiration. Her eyes landed on Camille, then flicked back to me. She didn't smile. I didn't either. We didn't sit at the family table. I'd requested seating with my cousin Marcus and his fiancée, the only 2 relatives I still liked. We spent the reception laughing, trading stories, and sipping wine while the rest of the family kept glancing our way like they couldn't quite process what they were seeing. Later, as we stood by the bar, Camille leaned over and whispered, they look like they're trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. I chuckled. Good. By the time the bouquet was tossed and the lights dimmed for dancing, I'd done what I came to do. Let them see me, not as the Caleb they used to command, but as someone who had carved his own life and didn't need them in it. The next morning, I finalized the anonymous email to Sabrina's financial aid office. Zoe helped me make sure it wasn't malicious, just factual. A polite note expressing concern about discrepancies between the family's reported income and their known assets, with links to public records and a timeline that made clear something didn't add up. I hit send and waited. Days passed. then a week, then two. Then, on a Thursday evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. When I checked it later, I recognized the voice immediately. Sabrina. She sounded panicked. Not angry. Not fake cheerful. Panicked. I don't know what happened, she said, breathless. But financial aid flagged something and said they're doing a compliance review or some crap. Mom's freaking out. Dad's blaming me. They think someone reported us. Did you? She trailed off. Then, quieter. If you know anything, can you call me? I saved the voicemail. Didn't respond. I wasn't done yet. Because something else had fallen into my lap. Something even better. But I'll get to that soon. Let's just say the dustpan. That was just the beginning. The fallout started quietly. It always does. No screaming. No threats. Just a few ripples that turned into waves. And when the waves hit shore, they took everything with them. I didn't even have to lift a finger. The day after I sent that anonymous email, I moved on. I didn't hover over my inbox. I didn't check Sabrina's college website obsessively. I wasn't waiting for the hammer to fall, because it wasn't about the hammer anymore. It was about the silence after the impact. And that silence came a few weeks later, in the form of a voicemail I replayed 6 times. Caleb, it's Mom. Call me. Please. Something's wrong. There's a problem with Sabrina's financial aid. They're saying look, just call me. We need to talk. I didn't call her. That same week, a distant cousin sent me a message on Instagram. Hey, are you okay? Your mom's been telling people you've gone off the rails. Like, saying you're unstable or something. It made me laugh. They were scrambling. That was all this was. They were flailing in the water, hoping someone would believe they weren't drowning themselves. I waited a few more days before calling Zoe. Check this out, I said, forwarding her the voicemail. After listening, she whistled. Sounds like they're feeling the heat. They are. And it's not just the aid. I did some digging. I had. In the weeks following the wedding, I kept uncovering more. Shady deductions on their taxes, a side business my dad never reported properly, even a second property under a shell name used to keep assets off the books. Sabrina's aid wasn't the only thing built on sand. Their whole financial life was a card tower. I'm not sure how far I should take this, I admitted. You don't have to do anything else, Zoe said. Let gravity do the work. And she was right. Because that week, Sabrina's university pulled her off the dorm list. An anonymous Reddit post from a student at her school went semi-viral on the college's thread. It described a rich girl who lost her financial aid because her parents lied on the forms. The comments were brutal. Speculative, but brutal. Sabrina's name wasn't in it, but students talk. Whispers spread faster than facts. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. Someone else filled in the blanks. Then came the call from my dad. I almost didn't pick up, but I was curious. Caleb, he said, his voice stiff. We need to talk. I figured. I want to know what you're doing. Clarify. You've been poking around. Have I? You think you're clever, but you're playing with things you don't understand. I smiled to myself. There it was, the first crack in his voice. Not control. Not calm. Fear. You stole from me, I said, and lied to get my sister an education you couldn't afford without fraud. I understand that perfectly. He didn't respond for a moment. Then, you're part of this family. You don't air dirty laundry to strangers. I'm not part of your family anymore, I said simply. You're hurting your sister. No, you did that. I just stopped covering for you. Click. He hung up. The fallout intensified after that. Sabrina messaged me 3 times in a single night. You ruined everything. How could you do this to me? I didn't even know about the FAFSA stuff. It was Mom. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that their chaos wasn't mine to manage. They'd spent years building a system where my silence was their safety net. And now that silence was gone. The truth was just loud. I moved on. Fully. My freelance work took off. I landed a recurring contract with a marketing agency that paid more than my old day job. I quit my full-time position and went independent. No more clocking in. No more soul-draining status meetings. I upgraded my apartment. I joined a local board game group, started running on the weekends, and even enrolled in a personal finance course for fun. For the first time, my life felt like mine. Camille and I stayed in touch. Not romantically. It fizzled naturally, but we met up for coffee sometimes, just to laugh about the wedding and swap updates. She told me she'd never seen a family so aggressively self-centered in real time. They thought they were the sun, she said once. And you were just a planet meant to orbit them. Not anymore, I said. The last message I got from my mom came around Christmas. It was a picture of the family tree ornament she used to hang every year. For little reindeer. My name on one. Sabrina's on another. Hers and Dad's on the top two. The caption just read, "I took yours off this year. Didn't feel right." I didn't reply, not because I was hurt, but because I felt nothing. That was the final part of the revenge. Not the financial aid being revoked. Not the audits. Not the anonymous rumors at her college or the subtle distancing from other relatives who'd heard bits of the story. It was the nothing. The full, resounding silence where their power used to live. And in that silence, I found peace. You see, revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes, it's about subtraction. About removing the weight they placed on your shoulders. About letting them fall, not because you pushed, but because you stepped away and let gravity do the rest. And the final irony? They were never holding me back. I was just standing too close. So I walked away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back.